Welcome to Learn to Build a Business podcast, the show that brings you insights, stories, and strategies from those who've made the leap from working professionals to successful entrepreneurs. With your host, Ray Ortega.
Welcome to the Learn to Build a Business podcast, where we teach tips, tricks, and tell stories of other entrepreneurs that have transitioned from working a job to being their own boss and going through all the trials and tribulations that hopefully we could teach you on this podcast. So I have a good friend of mine, Lucie McGuire, who is a social media mogul. I guess I want to call her that. That's my personal thing. So I talked to her about social media. She's really good at social media stuff. She's a serial entrepreneur, which I love serial entrepreneurs because, I'm in the same boat and I have her here on the podcast, and I'm so glad she's here. So Lucie, say hi to everybody.
Hey, everyone.
What I wanted to say real quick is that what I love about Lucie, she's extremely charismatic. She's a great speaker, and she's actually in a speaking competition that I know of. And I hope she succeeds and gets to talk on this huge stage that's going to happen sometime soon, right? I think it's in what month?
Very soon, next week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's in March or February, whatever month.
February, yeah. So yeah, and the reason why I'm bringing Lucie on is because I learned to build a business. You know how we're kind of helping you transition from becoming a working professional or being a working professional to become an entrepreneur. One major thing that you need to learn or several things, branding, how to market, all that kind of stuff. And what Lucie brings to the table is a lot of knowledge and information on how to do branding, also how to do social media, how to get yourself out there. Because I think one of the biggest challenges when you start a business is how do you find your customers, or how do you get the right customers to you? And Lucie's going to provide a lot of that information for you. So Lucie, if you can, just give us a background of how you got here.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Ray, for having me on. I'm so excited to be here and to talk about this topic because I love helping aspiring entrepreneurs to get to where they need to go within the realm of business. It is such a journey to think about when I look back on now, how I got to where I am today, because I couldn't have guessed any of it. If you had told me 7 years ago, 6 years ago that I would be, or even probably 10 years ago now, oh, that's crazy to think about. Wow. If you told me 10 years ago that I would be owning a social media company, I would have looked at you and laughed. I would have been like, haha, like you're funny. I used to be the person who was only on Facebook. All my friends were on Instagram, and they were like, Lucie, why aren't you on Instagram? I'm like, Facebook does it all. I don't need it. I'm good. I'm good over here. And, I noticed even in those points in time, how social media was kind of expanding, because Facebook, well, first there was MySpace, which is a whole nother kit and caboodle. But then we went into the Facebook realm, and then it started to branch off, right? It started to go into like Twitter just for statuses, and Instagram for pictures, and Vine for videos. And I was noticing that, and I was like, why would I do all that when I could just be right here? And so I was the person who was never into that. And then when I got into the marketing realm, unexpectedly, actually, it was because I used to work for Papa John's. So in high school, I started for Papa John's. Yeah, I did. I was just person at cashier in high school. I worked for Papa John's for 7 years though. And I moved up in the rankings in my local area from cashier to assistant or part-time manager. And then I moved to stores to a full-time manager position, and then moved to assistant manager. And by age 21, I had the opportunity to become general manager of a store or marketer of 6 locations. And I was like, get me out of the store. Let's do marketing. And I kind of showed some interest in becoming a part of that marketing field because of an unexpected mentor that came into my life that I wouldn't have even thought of as a mentor at that point. I think mentorship is really important, which I'm sure we could get into later. But someone had told me, you would do amazing in that and you should pursue it. And I was like, really? And they were like, yes. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. So I took and ran with that, ended up working for Papa John's for that period of time. And the final 2 years I was there, I was doing social media, but it really wasn't social media wasn't as big back then. And then I was doing network marketing, and that's what really got me started into the marketing realm. Then when I left, I left my job of 7 years, backpacked Europe, studied abroad. It was a whole portion of my life that changed my life forever. I came back and I was like, I want to start a nonprofit, but I was broke and all these things happened. And I was like, okay, well, we're just going to put that on the back burner. I'm going to come back to working. Just went straight back into working, found a job in marketing for a title company. That made no, like, you went from pizza to title company. Doesn't make any sense. Title company, most people don't even know about, but is related to the real estate world. And I did business development for them, where I was going and networking with people, bringing on clients. And one thing that they told me when I was in my interview for that, they were like, oh, you're going to have an item or something that is of value to people. And you might not know that right now, but there's going to be something that people are going to like come to you for that's going to provide value, that's going to bring you in more clients. And I was like, okay, cool, thanks. And I went in, tried to find out whatever my groove was, and learning about that entire new industry, it was a lot, but it really delved me into a lot of different aspects that were going on. The pandemic ends up hitting 2 years into that job. And here I am, 2020. My job is 100% to network with people. I'm supposed to be out there networking with people in person, shaking hands, kissing babies, and the world shut down. And so my boss is like, oh, well, don't worry, you're going to have a job. We'll figure this out. You have 6 months of reserve. I'm like, okay, but I am not someone who can just like sit at home and do nothing. So I was like, I wanted to look more into social media. Social media has always kind of been a small part of my marketing job before, but I never had the time to really delve into it. So during the pandemic, I was bored. I've never been that much at home in my entire life. So I was like, okay, I'm going to the internet, searching, researching, listening to webinars, podcasts, delving into the world of YouTube, starting a YouTube channel, and really expanding our Instagram and Facebook reach to be effective. Because I'm like, how can I get in front of people? The internet. And the internet really shifted a lot during the pandemic. I think we all can agree with that. It shifted us 10 years into the future now, and we are in a place that we could have never expected because of the worldwide pandemic that happened. And so I just went into learning all about that and started to build out a title company's business, which is, first of all, boring. Nobody really likes the topic of title insurance. And I somehow made it interesting through social media, through short form reels, creating live events where I was bringing on realtors and talking to people. And it got us so much traction that we tripled and quadrupled our sales over the summer of 2020 from social media. And that's really how I got started in social media. People started to look towards me for social media, and they were like, wait, can we just pay you to help us with social media? I was like, that's kind of a conflict of interest. I was like, no. And then when things didn't work out with the title company, I was like, I guess I'm going to be a social media coach. And that's what kind of happened. I actually got fired. So I got fired for a very silly reason. We were in negotiations of my salary, and it just wasn't working out. The dynamic had changed a lot because of the pandemic. And it was kind of like a push to shove reason. And it really lit a fire under my butt because it happened randomly on a Friday afternoon. I got the email, and immediately, I don't know what it was in my head that clicked, where I was like, I'm going to be a social media coach. And it was like fight or flight. That was that moment for me. And there was something in me that was like, this is what you need to do. And this is the only time you're going to have to do it, because all the comfort that I had, even though people for months had been telling me to do social media, like, oh, I'll pay you. And I had thought about it, but I was like, but I'm making good money right now. I've built this, part of my marketing, and I was a very committed and loyal person. Mm-hmm. And then when they screwed me over, I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to go for it. So you couldn't have told me I would have owned a marketing company, especially in social media 10 years ago. But it has been such a journey that I've loved being on. Yeah,
that is a great story and a very timely story. We are reaching a point in today, in the economics today. As you can probably see, there's a lot of layoffs happening right now. There's companies that are, reducing their workforce due to the fact that right now people just aren't spending money, especially on more higher ticket items, right? Like you have a lot of customers that are still buying a lot of products off of e-commerce and stuff like that. But like, for instance, my business, software engineering consulting, like that business right now, we've slowed down. So we've had to pivot into other things. But to your point, what you just said, you could be extremely loyal at a company for many years and provide the best quality, the best service And, at the end of the day, it's a numbers game. You're looked at as a number. And sometimes it's like, look, we just can't afford you right now. So we're going to have to let you go. One of the things that I really believe in, and I talk about this in the Learn to Build a Business program. And the reason why we built this program was the fact that, like, you never know when's that time. You never know. And might as well be prepared to start something on your own, because that may be your saving grace moving forward, especially if you have a family, children, or whatever, that. And I think that's a great story that people need to hear, because it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows when you go work somewhere, even if you're doing the best job, even if you're being promoted. Sometimes they just have to let you go. And then what do you do at that point? And the fact that you made that change, that was awesome. That's an awesome story.
Well, and what was even crazier is there was so much fire under my butt to get it going and get it started, because I had just bought a house the year prior. I had just bought a new car 4 months prior, because my car broke down. I had to buy a new car. So I was in this comfy job making almost $100K a year. Mm-hmm. And it was gone in a second. My stipend check was $1,000. That doesn't even cover half of my mortgage.
No.
And so I was like, I need to make this work. And I was very thankful that next week once I made my post and said, I've left, I didn't say like everything that had happened. I didn't say like, we were just trying to be amicable with everything going on.
Yep.
But I did have a lot of people when I mentioned that I was going to start mentioning what I was doing. I didn't want to put it out there just yet because it just had happened. So I was like, stay tuned. Things are coming like while I figure out what I was going to do. And I had a lot of job offers that actually came in, which was awesome. But again, there was just something that was like, you need to move forward with this. And I can say that it was 100% the best idea I could have done, and allowed me the freedom that I was really looking for. I work harder than I ever have in my entire life, and I do not want to underestimate that, but it has been the most rewarding thing I could have ever done, because every single second that I pour into my business, I know is benefiting me as a person, but also benefiting other people. And you just get so much satisfaction out of knowing that you appreciate yourself and the work that you're doing, rather than looking for that validation from someone else that may not give it to you in the way that you really, truly need.
Yep. And that's great. And so this brings me to another question. What would you say your mindset was, kind of, because it sounds like you went like cold turkey, right? From job to straight being an entrepreneur, right? Just to doing your own thing. 9 to 5 job. What was your mindset during that transition?
My mindset was, honestly, I need to get this up and running as soon as possible. I did not have a proper savings set up. Mm-hmm. So like most young adults in our generation right now, like they do not have proper money set up I had just started making decent money probably the year or two prior. And I didn't think anything like that. I was loyal to them. They claimed they were family, all of these things. So when I was in that position, I was really like, how can I make this work? And I was like, what was I making before? What do I need to make to cover my bills? Like, what is that? And then I worked it backwards to my services, because I think one of the number one things when you are starting a business is, what do you charge? Because there's an array of products and numbers that you could be utilizing within a business across the industry of whatever industry you're in. So I was like, how do I break this down and make this something that is, one, valuable for people? Because I knew I had the skills to do it. And I feel like a lot of times with being an entrepreneur, we also get into these imposter syndromes too, because just because you don't know everything doesn't mean you don't have value. You have a viable business if you are 1 or 2 steps ahead of someone else.
Yeah.
And that was the mindset that I was really trying to hone in on, because there was a lot of imposter syndrome coming in, like at the same time, where I was just like, okay, like I can do this. But then there was all these doubts flowing in too. Like, I have never done this before. I've never created a business, and just trying to piece it all together within about 2 weeks and building out my systems and realizing where I needed to, as you delve into more of business, there's so much to do, and understanding where it is that you need to let go of and what you need to prioritize and make your focus. So my mindset was just to stay afloat, honestly, and to get out that once I figured out the structure on the back end, then I was able to go in and launch it to my community, which luckily I am very well networked in my community over the years of marketing that I've been a part of. And so when I posted my first post on social media about my business and told people what I was doing, a lot of people were like, congratulations. They said, wow, that makes so much sense, because they had seen me doing social media for the previous company. They almost thought it was intentional, even though it was like not as intentional as they thought. And then when that happened, I had people calling me and they're like, oh, we're interested. Like, we want to work with you. I was like, oh, okay, great. And then it started. But I had to still learn as I went as well. Yeah. And I had to be open to understanding that I'm not going to make all the right decisions right away.
Awesome. Yeah. And you touched on 2 points that I wanted to go back to, because you talked about replacing your income. Like, so we at Learn to Build a Business, we focus on the foundations of building a business. And one of the biggest things we talk about originally is try to replace your income, just that small goal. Just start off with that small goal, because right now there's just so much noise on the internet of, earn $10,000 a month or become a millionaire in 6 months doing this e-commerce site, or follow my system and you can be a millionaire in like less than a year, or, all that stuff. And so when people are doing this transition, they're looking at the big picture already. Like your mind's already on the big picture. And then you immediately start going, I don't know if I could do that. Like, that's just too much. Like, I don't know how much, like, I don't even know if it's possible for me. Right. And the reality is like, if you start off with just a small goal like that of just replacing your income, that could be the catalyst that kind of moves the needle forward, because it's something that's more achievable, a lot quicker, not quicker, but it's more achievable. It's more like something you can touch. Like, you've seen those dollars before. So those dollars don't seem foreign to you when you go to make that transition. That was the first point that you mentioned that I wanted to touch on. That's super important. The second one is the imposter syndrome. When you have knowledge, like you were saying, like, you have to know one more than the person that's going to be your customer. You just have to know one more thing, right? There's a lot of people on the internet today that are masters of all of these different skill sets. And when you look at their history, right? I'll tell you technology. Right now, AI is hot. We all know that. You know that. You hear it everywhere. Our team builds AI. We've been doing it probably for like 6-7 years, and before ChatGPT even came out. But now there's people on the internet that are saying that they're artificial intelligence experts, and they're going to teach you artificial intelligence and how to use it in your everyday life. And they're charging. And here we are as experts who build artificial intelligence, and we're not even doing that, right? But it's because they have found customers that just don't know enough that they do. So therefore, those people are paying them to show them something that they don't have 7-8 years or even 25 years of software engineering like I do. But it's because they found those customers that know that one less than they do, that are committed to learning and decide to pay them for those services.
100%. All it is starting a business is just solving a problem. And if you can solve a problem for someone, they will pay you.
Yep.
Plumbers, I'm not plumbing my own toilet. They're solving a problem for me. If my toilet breaks, I'm not doing it. I could go to the internet. I could learn, but you're paying for the knowledge that someone else has that they've acquired that you don't want to, you're paying for the convenience of not wanting to go and learn and research that themselves. And that's the same thing with AI, social media. I mean, there's plenty of social media experts out there that will, and people that will even challenge it and be like, well, I could just go to the internet and learn all of this. Great, you could. Do you have time to do that? Because if you do, you probably wouldn't be talking to me.
Yeah, that's always the rebuttal to that one, right? The rebuttal is always, okay, you're going to go and learn everything I've learned for 10 years, and you're going to go learn that in like a week. It's like probably impossible, but you can give it a try if you want to. Or is your time worth it to pay me just to do it, right? So
exactly.
So going back to social media stuff and the work that you do, right? Because I really want to hone in on your specific, what you do, because I think it's important for people to understand that you're not just a pretty face on the podcast. You actually do this. And so tell me a little bit about Get Real Social. Tell me a little bit about your business.
Yeah. So Get Real Social is a social media agency that helps business owners who are struggling with social media in any realm with usually around Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube or TikTok. So we specialize in an array of different topics, but what we are really honed in on is we have two different sides of the business. We have coaching and then we have management. So the coaching side of things is a lot of what business owners do not think about as well, because they're always trying to look, oh, I want this off of my plate. But when it comes down to social media, there's a lot that's changed in the industry and there's a lot of information out there, but there's so many different services that you can do and it can get costly very quickly. So a lot of times business owners don't think about how much it can actually cost to integrate social media management into their marketing budget. And so we have created systems and programs that can really fit anyone's budget. We've made an impact to make sure that with the systems that we're putting in place, we have something from if you want to do it yourself and we're helping you side by side in that, your DIY. We have completely DIY, one step in the foot in the box with us. And then we have like a one-on-one coaching service. And then it goes into the full-blown management if that's where your company is at in its marketing plan. But a lot of times when small businesses are looking to integrate social media into what they're doing, there's a lot of noise out there when it comes to social media, and they usually have a very small budget for social media. And they're like, I don't want to touch it at all. I have $500. Do it for me. And the industry is very new in the sense of how it's grown over time. Yes, social media has been around for about 10, 12, 15 years. Well, it's been around in different areas, but really the social media that we're talking about, the Facebook, Instagram, and that has grown so much, just like I mentioned earlier with the pandemic itself in 4 years, which is crazy to think that the pandemic was 4 years ago, but 4 years, it has shifted a ton. And now you're seeing these social media management companies, you're seeing this be a major service that is offered that companies were offering to a degree before, but now it's brought out to the general public. And so people, when they're looking at these social media services, the industry right now is still trying to find its footing because there's companies who are like, we'll do it for you, no problem. For $500, $200, I've seen every range, $100 a month, $50 a month, $250, $500, $3,000. It goes in all the ranges, but different levels of support in that. So people end up spending all of this money and they don't know exactly what they're getting or what they need, but they just know they need social media and they'll take anything. They're like, I just need to post. I just need posts to get out. And that's really where the issue comes in, is that they don't understand why they're posting. They're just, I need a social media presence, like go and do it and figure it out.
I want to jump in on that real quick because we had a conversation over a week ago about we're dealing with the same problem, right? Again, my business, we've been 10 years in business as Grata Software, and people know us through word of mouth, relationships and things like that. Last year, we decided to make a big push on social media and actually getting out there. And we had talked about this where we're posting, what everyone recommends, right? Gary Vee, Harmozy, all these people, 2-3 times a day, 25 different posts a day and all these different social medias. And, there's a key metric in social media that you have to pay attention to that, as we talked about, we weren't paying attention to, or at least I was, but the team that I had hired wasn't paying attention to. And unfortunately, we were getting a lot of posts out there, but not many keyword conversions. So people see us, but nobody's doing business with us through social media. So explain how that whole process works.
Absolutely. So it really starts with one, making sure that your brand online is consistent across platforms so it's easy for people to find you. I find so many times that businesses have a social media following or presence or accounts across all these platforms that aren't consistent. People can't find you. Even I'm trying to find them. I do social media. And if I can't find you, that's a problem. So getting them set up appropriately is the first step. But when you go into the people who are telling you to post 20 times a day or even 3 times a day or even 2 times a day, but that standard isn't doable for everybody, especially as solopreneurs and small businesses, like they have a ton of other things that they need to be focused on. So I actually preach the opposite. I tell people, I'm like, you need to create quality content that actually speaks with your audience, and it is engaging content. You don't want to just post to post, because a lot of businesses go onto social media and they use old style marketing aspects like print and billboards and magazines, like where it's just like ads, or just like you put the ad on there and it's like 20% off, like buy today. Oh, did you know I'm a travel agent? Did you know I'm a realtor? Hey, use me. Hey, look at me. Hi, look at what I am. It's all about them. And that's not what social media is about. Social media is about it networking and engaging with an audience that is interested in what you want to do. But we have to remember where social media started. The name itself, social media, it is social. People are on there to communicate with friends, families, to learn things, to see what's going on in the world. They're not there, like, they're not opening up their apps being like, oh yeah, what am I going to buy today? Nobody's saying that. Like, let me go to Facebook and see what I'm going to buy today. Nobody's saying that. But business owners are going there and like, how am I going to sell these people today? Yeah. So that mentality is what I try to break down for people, because one, that's what they're doing. And then they're like, nobody's engaging with my stuff, or, oh, I'm shadow banned and nobody wants to see my stuff, or Facebook's doing it to me, or Instagram's doing it to me. And that's not what's happening. It's just because your content isn't engaging enough that the platforms are going to reward you for content that nobody wants to see. So creating that environment that is educational, that is understandable for an audience that doesn't know anything about your business, is really important, and building that out with a social media plan that makes sense with the content that you have and the audience that you're trying to target. So a lot of times people are just posting to post because they have different things that they need to get out there. And they're like, oh, I just need to get these posts out here. But they're not thinking about what is the goal behind this, and how does someone receive this information? Yeah. If they're coming across this post, is it educational to them? Is it where they're going to be like, oh yeah, oh, Ray's speaking again? Like, oh, let me stop and listen. Like, I need to stop and listen. Or is it they're just coming across and you're like, hey, buy this new software program, blah, blah, and they just don't know. They're going to scroll immediately. The seconds you have to capture people's attention is really important. And most people start off a video with, hi, my name is blah, 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 and I am with X, Y, and Z company. And then they get into their thing. You've already lost them. The number one thing is really focusing on your branding, understanding who your audience is, and then creating engaging content that actually educates your audience and shows your personality brand, so that when people come to your page, they're getting to know you and your business without getting to know you, is essentially what they want to do. They want to see a snapshot resume of what you do and how you help them. So,
as great information, one of the things I really wanted to touch on, because you harped on that point of like the social media, the content itself. So there's so many people out there that are saying you got to have these headlines, and these headlines that grab the attention, these hooks at the beginning of your social media post or your video, whatever. And but what is your take? Because I've seen this all over social media. I see this all over YouTube. They're like, you need to make a big claim. Because I think this is a big thing for entrepreneurs to understand. Because I know if I'm starting out, I know that if I go watch one of these videos, they'll say, you need to have all of this social proof, and you need to make these big claims, and you need to do all this stuff. And you're kind of like me, where it's kind of like you're on the fence of that, because you really believe you have a core value of, you don't want to lie or tell half truths, or you don't want to make it seem like you're a snake oil salesman. What is your take on that, on making these big claims? Like, now you see it all the time. It's like, the biggest one I've seen, at least in the tech world, is, you're going to make six figures in 90 days by taking my program on how to become a software engineer, which all of us who are in the industry know that there's no freaking way a company's going to pay you $100,000 a year just because you took a 90-day course in software engineering. Like, you literally have to have years of experience. But let's put it in the terms of the business side, right? Or like, let's say marketing, right? Yeah. A big claim would be, follow my social media strategies and make six figures in 3 months You know what I mean? With all of my social media stuff. Like what is your take on those kind of things?
I think that at the end of the day, what they're trying to do is that, remember what I just said, right? The whole hook aspect, that the first words out of your mouth and not a second being wasted is really important. But if it doesn't make sense for what you're doing in your business, I think the important aspect to look at is, how can I create that first line sentence that is going to make people stop and say, huh, or wait, what is he saying? Like, that is what you're trying to do. And I think that's what they're doing on their end. And they're making big claims to get people to listen to what they have to say, because that's just getting people to step in the door, right?
Yeah.
People are all like, think of it like a door that you're opening it and people are just walking by. It's New York City and you're just opening your door and you're like, come on in. But you have to say something that's like, hey, look at me. Now you can walk. They're going to go, oh, and then they can step in. Now, it doesn't always have to be a large claim. You don't want to ever feel like in your business that you are a snake oil salesman, or that it doesn't make sense with your branding. It needs to make sense with your personality. I always tell people that, like, whenever you are creating your brand online, you need to stop looking at the industry standard of whatever your industry is, because there's many that have like a certain look or whatever it is that they feel like they need to be in. It needs to be whatever your business is. You are a business owner, and that business is completely revolved around the vision that you have for it. So you create that. And whatever that vision is, you are the founder of that piece of real estate on the internet, right? So you need to be able to understand what are the pain points of your audience. That's really what it is. What they're doing with those big claims is they're saying, you don't have money. You want $1 million? Who's going to say no to $1 million, right? They're just taking a pain point that you have and putting it in front of you to be like, this is your pain point. You need money. This is how you get it, and making you listen. But you can do that with multiple things. You can say, for instance, if you're talking about, social media, if you're looking, if you stop and you just listen to what it is that your audience needs, and you take the pain points. You should know your audience's pain points. You should be able to identify who it is you're speaking to. If you're speaking to a mom who has no time to do anything, and you're like, have no time, this is how you get your time back.
Yeah.
See, it doesn't have to sound like a snake oil thing. Like, if you have no time and you want to be successful on social media, this is 3 steps for you to be able to do that. So I think that there are, of course, the bigger people that you're going to see, and especially the people that are paying these large ads to get in front of you consistently as you're their target audience, that are going to make it sound like these big and grandiose things. But you have to be smart and just understand like what it is that you truly need, and understanding your own pain points as a business too, to really know where it is that you lack, so that you are not just on the internet pulling in all of this resources and all these informations. Where do you actually need to start and implement, so that you can actually move to the next step in your own business that isn't going to overwhelm you? And I tell people all the time, just start small. If you have no posts on social media, if I go to your social media page and you have nothing, you haven't posted since 2021, you do not need to post 5 times a day. You need to post once a week is your goal. Try once a week. Quality over quantity. If you are going in there with the expectation that you're going to post 5 times a week and that's what you need to be successful, which is not true. If you post 5 times a week and you do it for 3 weeks and then you drop off the face for another 3 years, it does no one any good. It doesn't do you good.
Exactly.
You better take those 15 posts and spread them out over 15 weeks.
Yeah.
So that's my take on that.
Well, you touched a good point there. How does someone, and I already know the answer to this, but I'm just asking for the sake of our listeners. But like, how does someone spread out 15 posts over 15 weeks? Like, what is there out there that allows them to do that? Do they have to hire someone to do that? Are there tools? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah. So there's actually a ton of tools out there that you can use. You can use, if you're just using Facebook and Instagram, you can actually use the Meta Business Suite. The Meta Business Suite, you're able to schedule out posts. You can do static posts. You can do videos. You can even do them directly on Instagram. They just launched their feature on Instagram to be able to schedule out your posts. It does have some limitations to it, but it is still very valuable to be able to do that. Now, there's anything from free, which would be a Meta Business Suite, Facebook and Instagram, to a Hootsuite or these platforms that give you access to be able to post to multiple platforms at one point. So with that, I think it's best to be able to, one, come up with a social media plan and then use a tool that you're going to actually utilize. Because if you're not going to post, if you're not going to hold yourself accountable, then it's not going to do you any good. If you purchase these big softwares and you never use them, it's not going to benefit you.
Yeah.
We actually just launched this year a coaching program where it is coaching and accountability, but it's also a back-end software that helps to keep people on track with accountability of posting. So it's actually a scheduling aspect. They have Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, Google My Business, all of these different platforms that they can post to all at one place. And there's other softwares that do that too. So it really just depends on where your budget's at and what type of accountability you want for that. But coming up with you can schedule it online. There's plenty of platforms you guys can use. But if you're just starting out and you have no business yet, or maybe you are just starting your business and you want to get posts out there, the Meta Business Suite for Facebook and Instagram is a great starting point to be able to see a calendar where you can schedule out your content over a long period of time, a month, 2 months, etc. And just coming up with a plan for what content you want to have.
Yeah. Yeah. And my company, we were using Buffer for a while. Obviously we've grown. So now we're using SEMrush, so
Yeah.
I would not recommend that to someone who's first starting out. That's a very expensive software. Buffer was cheap at first, but when you start adding all the social channels, then now you have to pay per social channel after a certain point. What do you think is probably the best cost effective one for someone starting out?
It depends on how many platforms they're trying to post to. So if it's free, if you want a free aspect, like I said, Meta Business Suite for Facebook and Instagram, honestly, there are some that are redistributed through like mine is a white labeled product that I have that actually allows you to post to, it doesn't charge you per platform. It's not just Facebook. It's not just like Facebook's $15 a month. And then you want to add Instagram, it's 20, et cetera. And some of them have those hierarchies. Actually, and this is important to keep in mind too, for a long time, the platforms were actually giving more focus to if you posted directly on the platforms. So for a long time, my team and I were actually going and organically posting on the platforms because that mattered more. But they recently just came out with articles and the CEOs themselves has said that there are not they've taken away the limitations of using third-party platforms and that they aren't as affected now, especially with all the different editing softwares that are in play. So we had invested in that back-end software so we could use that for our clients. And now we're starting to I'm not even saying this for the sense of my product and service that we offer. It's just because ours doesn't limit the amount of accounts that you can do to. And if you're going to do more than Facebook and Instagram, then it's already more cost effective for what we've set up with our system. But Hootsuite isn't bad. I don't mind some of those platforms, but I haven't fully utilized them to be able to say I'm an expert in Hootsuite and can tell you that this is good or bad at the same time, because we invested in our software pretty early on.
Well, I feel like all the platforms, third-party platforms out there are pretty much, they all have similarities. I think the biggest difference is like what you pay for, like how many platforms you pay for, whether you just pay for the platform itself, and then you can do whatever you want with it. Cause I know for me, SEMrush, it's one fee, but I have X amount of accounts I could put on it.
For instance, I have one client who is utilizing our backend software, and it's a travel brand, but they have multiple Instagram accounts for different purposes because it makes sense for their business model. And so they've had a hard time finding a software that will actually allow them to attach multiple Instagram accounts. And so when we had come across ours and what we're doing, they were like, oh, that's amazing. We can attach our 10 Instagram accounts. Wonderful. And post it from one place. Yeah. And so there's a whole content library that's back there. It integrates with Canva. You're able to schedule out on your calendar months ahead of time. The analytics feature and the auto posting scheduling that they have, it can even pull in content from a Google RSS feed. So can pull in your content from a Google Drive. It's very intuitive, but it's only for social media.
So RSS feed essentially is a link that you provide a system, and then it knows to go grab data from somewhere else. That's basically what that is. You had mentioned another thing, Canva. So for those that don't know, Canva is a highly used tool for creating content, graphics, and I think everybody has it. We have it. Everybody we know has it. And then now with AI, with ChatGPT, it even integrates into Canva. Yesterday, I was able to do like 10 posts at one time using content from my ChatGPT. I would definitely look at it when you're starting out. Canva is a really great tool. Because when you're starting out, you can't hire designers all the time. You can't hire all those people. That's what it was created for. It was created for people who just don't have the funds to hire a creative team. So essentially, you're borrowing. They've basically pulled together creative people across the globe that contribute to this platform, so that you basically get professional grade, creatives that you can use for everything: ads, social media, a bunch of other things.
It's amazing. And for every type of marketing platform, I always tell people it's Photoshop for dummies, but really for smarties, because why would you not take the easier route to do all of those things, all the templates that they have? Yeah. And if you don't know what Canva is, it is such a great platform. It is the best $12 a month that I spend, hands down. 100%.
Now, question for you is, do you recommend, because we've been talking about Instagram, Facebook, and all the stuff. Do you recommend someone starting out, should they try to go after every social platform? Should they distribute their content across all those platforms, or should they just focus on a few? What is your take on that?
That's a great question. I think that if they're just starting out and they have nothing, what they should do is they should, one, make sure that they set up an account on every single platform with their brand and the consistency. So that's something that we do in our deep dives and everything, is like setting up people's accounts and just getting I call them social media shells. So if you're creating a business, you want to make sure you're solidifying that name consistently across all those platforms. Doesn't mean you have to use them right away, but at least you have it set up for in the future. If you want to utilize those platforms, you have it, it's branded. If someone's looking for you on those platforms, it's there. They can see that it's not, your main platform, but it can connect back to your other platforms. So I always recommend to make sure and your usernames on all of those platforms are the same, so that SEO is better too. Search engine optimization. It's a fancy term for your searchability, for people to be able to find you. And that is one thing I always recommend. Now, once you've set up your shells, start with the platforms that you are most comfortable with. Typically, Facebook and Instagram are the ones that start. I would recommend doing Facebook and Instagram together at one time. So I wouldn't just do Facebook, but you could start to learn just Facebook and get comfortable with posting and then integrating into into Instagram, because both of those are owned by Meta and can easily integrate with one another to get both of those content pieces out to everyone. Now, if you're creating video content and you're familiar with more platforms, then yes, you can put it to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and utilize that, even LinkedIn. But don't overwhelm yourself if you're not ready for that and you don't have a software like mine or a management software where you're able to post all of them all at once, because you will get overwhelmed going to each platform individually to post all of that. And it will take a lot more time than you're anticipating it will take to post all of them.
Absolutely.
So yeah, definitely starting off with most comfortable platforms, but setting up all of them all at once.
Yep. And I will second that, because when I started Learn to Build a Business, which was last October, after we went to the 10X thing, I got, our Instagram set up, and I've got Instagram, LinkedIn, like the stuff that I knew off the top of my head. Right. And I remember I have a marketing team, I have a minute that was actually doing some of this stuff. Right. And then one day I went on TikTok and we didn't have a TikTok channel. And I'm going, anybody can go on there and just like steal our TikTok name and
take it.
Yeah, take it. And then anyone can take, there was another one, I can't remember which other social media, but we ended up having to do that. We ended up having to go through all of them, make sure we locked down that our name, our handle was going to be the same across the board, because that was the thing that we didn't, as far as my team, we didn't take on that part. And so it's definitely one of the biggest nuggets there for anyone who's listening, for those who are listening, that you definitely want to go ahead and grab that name across the board, because there are people who their whole life and their whole goal is to steal those names, because what they're trying to do is sell it back to you.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I just had a band that was in my local area who has been a band since the 80s. And when we were trying to, they're a band that's connected with one of our other clients. They were playing there and everything. So we do our best to tag all of the people that collaborate with those places. So we had found what we thought was their account. I mean, we had no idea of knowing who exactly, we tried to get the information from them, but tracking down information is hard. So we had we had tagged what we thought it was theirs. It was another business that had that name, or another band that had that name. And then they commented, this is in our this is in our Facebook page or whatever. And they started like linking their websites. And I was like, what? Do you have a Facebook page? Like, they didn't even have a Facebook page. And they're like, people are stealing our name, even though we've copyrighted it. I'm like, people aren't going online to be like, who has this? Like, they're not doing that.
Yeah.
And if you've been if this has been your business since the 80s and you haven't solidified that, like, that's on you, bub. Like, you should have solidified that name. So they created the accounts and everything, but they were having issues with solidifying their exact username that they wanted.
Yeah.
And I want to be very clear with people too, that there's a difference between your name on Instagram, that what shows up as your name on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all your business name, and then what your username, and this is a really important tip. When you go to facebook.com/Get Real Social Coach, that's mine, right? Mine's Get Real Social Coach on everything. Mm-hmm. If you put in the browser that facebook.com/ that's an easy way for you to look up if yours is already taken. So you can put / whatever your business name is. Go to every platform and do that. Instagram.com/ whatever you're trying to create. And if there's an account that already has it, it will pull up the account in 5 seconds and show you, okay, someone already has that name. And if that is the case, if it's not taken on any other platform, but it's taken on some random platform, then what I would recommend is to create a variation to some degree that does not include underscores or periods, because those are the worst. Don't use them.
I literally said before we started this podcast, I said that our other brand, Who You Media, we went Who You _media because someone took the Who You Media part.
Well, I see people oh my gosh, people try to think, they're like, well, there's no spaces. I'm like, you don't need spaces in your username. They're like, oh, we're trying to create the space, and they put 4 underscores in their name. I'm like, do you understand that people are already like, it's already hard enough to get people to type something in. Now you're asking them to click 4 settings on their thing to get, let me click over here to get to my underscore, to then come back and then continue writing your name. You're making it harder for people, and they'll just give up. They won't. They'll just like, oh, well, I'll look at it later, and maybe never look at it later. So you have to make it as easy as possible. And
that's exactly. So I'm glad you just said that. That was the part that when you said that, I was like, I want everyone to understand who's listening that, when you're in business, your goal is to make the job easier for your customer as much as possible. You have to think of what is the most simplest way they can access you. They can type in your name and all that stuff. So it's something that's a huge deal. A huge deal when it comes to it. Yeah.
And I say all the time, anybody can start a business, and that's a good and bad thing. So like, it's really good, but it's also can be really bad. You have to put thought into what you're creating. And I've seen some business names that really shouldn't have been business names. And you have to think about the outward experience for someone else. If it's some random name that nobody's going to know how to spell, or it messes with a word that most people aren't going to be familiar with, you have to be aware of those aspects when creating your brand. So that's another branding tip, I would say.
Awesome. So let me get back. I want to go back to your business as the entrepreneur, you as the entrepreneur real quick. We're almost out of time. I think we're past time, but it's okay. I don't care. Your content, what you're saying is amazing, and I want people to hear it. So tell me, as an entrepreneur with your business, what would you think is one of the biggest challenges you've had in your business?
That is such a good question. I think there are a lot of different challenges that have come up. I think the number one challenge is learning how to differentiate between working in your business and working on your business, and how to take the time that you're spending on activities and really make sure that you are not just pounding the pavement in a direction that you need to be focusing your attention on other things, because a lot of things are going to come your way. A lot of things you're going to, especially as you start to bring on employees, especially as you start to bring on new clients and wanting to have control over every aspect, especially if you're starting off as a solopreneur and you're not just starting off a business where you expect to have employees right away. There's a lot that goes into it, and time management is really important, and keeping up with a schedule is really important. And that's one thing that even to this day, me trying to create boundaries for myself of how much I'm working and how much I'm putting into it, because self-care is really important for entrepreneurs, because we can burn ourselves out so easily. I mean, and I'm really not one to talk because last night I was up till 5 a.m. working, but I do recognize and take time where some days I'm like, Lucie, I'm going to step away. You're stepping away from this computer and you're not coming back tonight. Whatever issues are there or need to be handled, they'll be there tomorrow morning and you can handle it then. Yeah. So I think that for me has been the biggest thing I can tell to someone is like, learn how to differentiate between the two and understand when you're doing one versus the other, because working in your business is being like the person who's doing everything, right? So when I first started out, I was doing all of the coaching. I was doing all of the management, and all of that was very time consuming, but it didn't give me time to work on my business and what the structure of that is, and how can I make things more effective, and how can I look at it from a bird's eye view rather than just the internal view as like an employee almost of my own business. Yeah. So those are really important things. And actually someone who told me early on, like, to be aware of, and that was probably the best perspective I could have gotten early on, was to be aware of that. So I want to pass that on to other people.
Great topic of discussion. Great answer too, because I find myself doing the same thing. I find myself working till 4 or 5 in the morning sometimes, and then sleeping 3-4 hours, and then turning around, coming right back to the office and continuing on with my day. And so there are those moments. In fact, last night I posted on Instagram. I don't know if you saw the post that I posted, but I basically went to the Orlando Magic game, and I had tickets to what they call the Ultimate Lounge, which is their all-you-can-eat buffet restaurant down in the tunnel, where you go and you kind of mingle with other, people who are down on the floor seats and stuff like that. And they're usually business people and other executives and families who just, have a lot of money, to be honest. They're there. And, and I posted where I was in the lounge and the game had already started and everyone had filtered out of the lounge, and it was just me and then the employees of the lounge. So it was like a huge empty lounge, and I'm just sitting there by myself, and I snapped a photo and I just said, sometimes you just need to be by yourself. Like you just need to just stop and just chill and just relax and not talk to anyone or not negotiate a deal or not try to get a new contact. Like, just give yourself that moment to just sit there and just relax. And, and so I posted that last night because I had gone nonstop. I felt like I was like nonstop for like 3 days. So I just needed that moment. So
it's super important. And I had a similar moment recently too, where I was running the midnight oil for so long, and I was like, I'm a hiker. I'm a traveler. I love being in nature, and I live in Florida where it is very hot, and most people would be like, oh my God, that's so amazing. But I'm born and raised here. I'm done with it. I want mountains. I want hiking. And so I travel a lot to escape the heat.
Yeah.
But the other day it was actually pretty decent weather, and it was a Saturday, and I had done work to do, but I was like, I'm going on a little nature trail. I need to get out of my house. I need to be in nature, because that's where I know that's where I really reconnect and with myself. Yeah. And what was crazy is during that hike, or well, it's not even a hike because it's Florida, but during that walk in nature,
I was going to say, where did you hike in Florida?
The walk that I took through some bushes in Florida here. When I was doing that, I actually the speak off we were talking about earlier, right? I was like, oh, well, how can I was kind of stuck on exactly how I wanted to pitch something. And when I was walking and just exploring, all of a sudden it hit me. And it was like flooding into my brain exactly what I wanted to say. And I'm like grabbing my phone and I'm like, oh, I need to speak this into, I like just voice to texted.
Yeah.
What I was thinking, because my brain had time to breathe and think and be free of every single thought that I had. Cause I was like, I need to escape from this. And yes, it kind of brought me right back into it, but it was a good flow that I needed, that I was obviously cutting off because I was just focused on so many other things. So we have to be aware of when we're in those moments, and we need to not look at it as a weak moment or us not doing enough. And we need to just let ourselves be okay with stepping back and taking care of us, because if we go down, it can go down. It shouldn't go down. That's another thing.
Yeah.
Is if you build up your business, you want to make sure that if you go down, it's not going down with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Funny you say that. My wife always tells me, she's like, the business won't continue to run if you're dead. she's like, take care of you. She needs to take care of yourself.
It's so true. So, the money won't benefit you if you're dead.
But you're right. And the last thing you said, and I want to make sure I make a point of this, as you said it right there, is you want to build the type of business that if anything happens to you, and I'm not saying you're going to pass away or anyone's going to pass away, but if, let's say, you do need to take a long vacation or you need to walk away from it, you want to be able to have it running like a well-oiled machine that doesn't require you to be there. I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe that's the goal at the end of the day. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's a key piece for people to understand. Like, when we're talking about learning to build a business, we're originally talking about just making the transition from working somewhere. We talk about obviously starting, just replacing your income, but the ultimate goal is we're trying to get to a place where we can walk away from the business and the business continues to operate and make money for yourself, your family, and for whatever other thing you want to use that money for. So.
100%. And it takes time. Don't be impatient. Like, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not step 3 or 4. It's like step down the road. You need to you get your business up and going, and then start to make duplicable processes within your business that you can teach to other people easily, so that it's not just you. You need to brain dump what you're doing so that other people can learn it.
Absolutely. So awesome, Lucie. I mean, I know we're kind of out of time, we're way over time, but I'm cool with, I just want to make sure that people know, again, how to get a hold of you, how to find your offer. So if you want to go ahead and I'll give you the floor, tell them what you got, what they can take advantage of from you.
Absolutely. So for people just starting out, there is one, you can find us online very easily. I told it to you guys earlier, but it's at Get Real Social Coach on every platform: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, all of the platforms. So at Get Real Social Coach, and real is not spelled like a Instagram reel. It's REAL, because we don't know how long that term is going to last. And real will always be a real word. So Get Real Social Coach, and the business is Get Real Social. Now, with our offer that we're doing right now, we have our monthly coaching and management software that we're doing. It's a membership rate that we're doing, and it's only $99 a month right now for the first people that are entering it. And that is going to be something where you get access to a social media management software. You get access to a monthly coaching call with me. And we also do accountability and goal setting for you, so that we're building you up to be able to create a business on social media that is going to be consistent, whatever that is for you. And we have a whole community, a Facebook group where you're join into, and you'll be able to ask questions to our team and to me, where we are there to support you, but you're doing it on your own to get your feet wet with your social media business, and just getting consistent online with a resource where we give free resources all the time in our membership group, where we're creating resources for you, whether it be a calendar that you can utilize just to break down your ideas. We have video links that we send out. We have different PDF documents that we send out with different tips and tricks. So we really try to just provide as much value as possible. And that's really the best thing I can say as a a budget item to utilize in your business. If you're looking for that type of solution, we're here for you.
Awesome. And I just want to reiterate the fact that, coaching and coaches, mentors, and all stuff is super important when you're starting a business. And not one coach, it's not like a mutually exclusive thing where, I already have a marketing coach, I don't need another one. I could tell you I have probably 3 or 4 of the same coaches in multiple areas of the business, because everyone has a different personality, different way of saying something, has different information. And it's all valid, because it's kind of like, who said it before? I don't remember if it was here or another podcast, but it's like, you want to gather all the information from all the areas around you and then pick the things that make sense to you. So sometimes if you're just listening to one person, they're only going to get one nugget versus getting nuggets from a whole bunch of people. So take advantage of her coaching, take advantage of Lucie's coaching. I'm telling you, it's worth it. $99 is a drop in the bucket, to be honest with you. When it comes to running a business, like $99 is nothing. So definitely take advantage of it. And I'm telling you, you'll get some good information. I've already had a few calls with Lucie, and the information she's provided has already been like, oh my gosh, I didn't think of this. Like, this is awesome. So definitely take advantage.
We appreciate that.
So Lucie, thank you very much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was a blast, and you are such an incredible wealth of knowledge yourself. And I am so grateful to be a part of this and to just have a conversation with you about where it's all going, how it's all playing out, and to help these entrepreneurs start businesses that can be more successful for them. And I hope they come across this if they are.
Absolutely. And this is just one of many podcast episodes that we have. And so for those listening or watching, thank you for being on here. And we look forward to seeing you in the next podcast. So again, thanks, Lucie. And we'll see you guys. Check you guys later.
Thanks, Ray.